Hey, how's everybody doing? Happy Wednesday. I hope that things are going well for each of you. I wanted to hop on really quickly. Yesterday, I wanted to make a video and I didn't get around to doing it. Well, I did it, but it didn't save, and so I wanted to revisit that thought. So on Monday, I actually went and I went to a meditation class, which was really great. It's found this gem of a place in in Atlanta that is it's just a really remarkable place. And we talked a little bit about this idea of equanimity, and it was a fascinating thought to me as we were kind of exploring this idea of unconditional love and how we reserve that based on our experiences, interactions, interpretations of other people. And the core message behind this was that, and that's really an illusion. It's really something that we create in our own minds. It's a perception that we create within ourselves, and it's also temporary in nature, meaning that it fluctuates, right? That, there can be a moment where someone in our life we have a great affinity for, and something happens, and then we fall out of that affinity, right? We fall out of kind of that relationship and start to perceive them in a different way. And who's to say that a month down the road or 2 months down the road that person doesn't come back and say something or do something to reconcile the relationship, and then they move from this place of being in aversion, right, someone that we don't want to speak to someone that's working on kind of redeveloping and reestablishing this relationship that we have. And I thought that was this phenomenal idea to think about the fluctuation of our relationships and how they change from positive to negative and from good to bad or what have you. And then like taking a look at that and saying to myself, well, that really is, it's all based on my own internal perception. And the real key here was that, if our judgment of someone else, right, if our judgment of someone else were inherently true, like let's say it's someone that I don't like, and my judgment about that person was inherently true, then all of the universe would validate that. And that's simply not the case. So, for instance, let's say I don't like someone, right? We had an argument, a disagreement, and now I don't want that person in my life anymore because I'm judging them as them not being a good person. Well, if that judgment were true, then everyone who interacted with that person would carry the same judgment. And it's simply not the case, right? Because while I might not like that person, their parents may love them, or their spouse may absolutely adore them, or their children look up to them with a sense of respect and regard and has a completely different perception of that individual than I do based on my experience. And if that's the case, then I'm the one who creates the perception, the judgment, right? I'm the one who creates the circumstances around the nature of that relationship. And in thinking of that, it was like, well, look over the course of your life, right? Take a look at the course of your life and then think about, how people change as far as how you judge them, as far as how you perceive them. And it was really just this beautiful awareness. And so the equanimity part came in from the perspective of, when I look at people, how is it and what is it that I want to hold as a perception of them? And the ideal would be to love them, even through, our differences, right? Because we're all just human, we're all making mistakes, we're all learning, we're all growing, we're all working, in the construct to the best of our ability with what we know and what we understand. But our perception is always limited. It's always limited. And so we went through this meditation where we kind of identified someone that we have an affinity towards, and we placed them to the left of us. And then we identify someone who is neutral in the sense that there's indifference. Like I might not know that person well, we may not have developed the type of relationship yet. We're just at the beginning of getting to know one another, so I don't have a judgment about that person. And then on the right-hand side, we identified someone that we have an aversion towards, right? So there's these three kind of categories where we put people in. It's kind of affinity. Do I like someone? Do I want them to be around me? Am I indifferent? Does it not matter? I don't know this person. I don't really have a judgment. Or is there an aversion, right? Am I kind of wanting to repel this person away and not, have them in my life? And find an example for all three. And go into a meditative state and imagine, the affinity being on your left, the aversion being on your right, and the indifference being in front of you. And really get a feel for the understanding that I'm the one that creates this judgment. This is happening inside of me. Because at any given point in time, any one of these individuals can do something to change where they are in the categorization of how I perceive them. And really meditating on that gives you an opportunity to understand that, wait a second, I'm the one that's responsible for it, right? I'm the one that's making that judgment call. I'm the one that's making that decision. And as you do that, if you try to kind of embody this idea of loving everyone, as cliche as that may sound, but loving everyone, and realizing that you can move these people into different categories of how you perceive them and just feel what happens to yourself emotionally and mentally. And as I did it, it was really powerful in the sense that, it gave me just kind of a greater degree of understanding. And it also gave me like this compassionate heart for the person that I was using as a point of reference for, having an aversion towards, that things change and everything's temporary in nature. And, if that's the case, then what is it that I'm choosing to think about? What is it that I'm choosing to create? What is it that I'm choosing to perceive, right? And if I'm not in a place where I feel like life is good, then I'm choosing to perceive things in a negative way, and I'm responsible for that. And then the last thing that I want to share is that throughout this, something that came up was related to the seeds that we plant in the world. And there's, I've recommended this a couple of times before, but there's a great book by Don Miguel Ruiz that's called The Four Agreements. And I highly recommend that you read it. And in that book, there's a chapter called The Impeccable Word. And the impeccable word is basically a chapter that covers the importance of integrity within the way that we speak and the way that we use our words, and the acknowledgement of the magic that is contained within our words. And this doesn't necessarily apply just to the things that we say, right? This also applies to the things that we think, right? Because our internal words create as much of a reality for us as our external words impact the reality in which we exist, right? There's profound magic in the words that we use. And throughout the class, we were kind of talking about, what seeds are we sowing in our communication with ourselves and with others? Like, are we sowing seeds of division, or are we sowing seeds of inclusion based on how we think, what we say, and how we interact with others? And I thought that was a really beautiful kind of complementary thought in the idea of equanimity and this universal self-love, or this sacred heart, that it's so important for us to not only speak in a way where we love ourselves, like where we're really kind of compassionate and empathetic and forgiving and patient and understanding and kind with ourselves, but then to take that magic and to speak it into the world, right? To build up the people that are around us, to offer forgiveness and acceptance and patience and kindness in our interaction with others, so that we can really understand the degree of influence that we have over the impact that we can make on the people around us. And in doing so, really change our lives, right? Change the quality of the experiences and the relationships that we have with the people that we love and the people who actually have an opportunity to interact in our sphere of awareness and our sphere of consciousness. And so, yeah, the equanimity piece was great. The compassionate heart, right? The sacred heart, loving as much as you possibly can, even those that we think we can't love, just because we understand that it's a temporary thing, right? Our judgment is a temporary thing, and it's all this illusionary, imaginary story that we've made up in our own mind, and that at any point in time, any one thing can change our disposition related to those people. And then, the actual utilization of our magic, of our words, of what we speak, of what we feel, of what we think. It was really, really beautiful, and I hope that this message resonates with some of you, and that it's useful. All right, I hope that you guys have a great Wednesday, and until next time. All right, ciao.